pessoal, tudo bem com vocês? E hoje eu tô aqui para mais um capítulo, né, do livro que a gente tá lendo em conjunto aí em inglês, que é o The Star Shepherd. Estamos aí para mais um episódio do nosso quadro aqui no canal, né, que é o Lendo em Inglês, no qual eu leio o parágrafo não, desculpa. Eu leio o capítulo do livro em voz alta em inglês aqui com vocês para ajudar vocês a irem treinando o ouvido de vocês, treinar a leitura, né? Falo sobre a pronúncia, então eu sempre vou deixar aqui enquanto eu estiver lendo a legenda para vocês irem acompanhando com a leitura. Quem quiser de fato treinar, vocês podem comprar o livro, mas como eu falei, né, como é uma compra internacional, ele é bem caro, né, para os nossos bolsos. Esse daqui eu ganhei quando meu marido foi visitar a irmã dele nos Estados Unidos, então ele trouxe de lá para mim. Mas se você quiser comprar para poder fazer leitura conjunta comigo, eu vou deixar aqui na descrição do vídeo o link para você comprar esse livro. Você pode comprar o e-book dele, que tá bem mais em conta, ou se você não puder adquirir o livro, você pode ler aqui com a legenda e daí você vai pausando, tá? Essa leitura em conjunto é realmente para ajudar vocês a melhorarem aí o vocabulário em inglês, a leitura em inglês, tá? Esse é o foco da gente lendo um parágrafo por semana aqui em inglês, tá? E lembrando que toda vez que você comprar qualquer livro, qualquer objeto na Amazon, usando os meus links que eu deixo aqui na descrição do vídeo, você tá ajudando o canal, então muito obrigado por usar os meus links de associado. Então, sem mais delongas, vamos lá para o Chapter 4, capítulo 4. Eu vou deixar em pezinho assim que fica melhor para eu ler, porque tô aqui atrás da câmera, tá? Então, começando. Chapter 4. Carol headed back to the watchtower, kicking a twig on the way that Cypher ran ahead to chase. Why had he taken the star anyway? He hated the idea of seeing one die out, but if the village wouldn't help them anymore, how would they get supplies? Would he ever see Andre again? Would one lost star really make that much of a difference? A sullen haze settled over his shoulders. When Cairo opened the door, he was surprised to see his father tearing around the workshop. "Where did he go?" he muttered as he pawed through a pile of discarded burlap cases. Cairo frowned. "What are you looking for?" His father paused. "You took the star out of it. Where did its case go? I must examine it." "It's still on the workbench," Carol said. Tyrion had blown right by it in his hurry. "Ah, of course," he said, patting his son on the head. He inspected the case on all sides, his frown growing deeper with every breath. "What's wrong?" "This one is different from the others we've rescued," Tyrion mused. "See?" He pointed to the slice Carol had noticed earlier. A knot began to form in his stomach. "It looks like it was cut, but that's impossible. No one can reach the stars. They're too high," Carol said. Still, the longer he considered it, the colder the knot in his stomach became. Almost as cold as he'd been in the presence of the shadow creature yesterday. His father stroked his chin. Stars falling down in the daytime, cuts instead of tears. Something's wrong. He looked up at his son, eyes full of an emotion Carol hadn't seen in them since his mother died. Fear. "I must report this to the council. I'll leave at first light." He set the burlap casing back on the workbench. "I will return as swiftly as I can, but it will probably take me all day and most of the night to get there. Make my case and come home. You must watch the sky in my absence, Carol." Carol was too stunned that his father trusted him to watch the stars alone, to object as his father's shadow retreated into the watchtower. When Carol woke the next day, dusk fell. His father had been gone for hours. Nervously, he climbed the stairs to the top of the watchtower with Cypher at his heels. He settled onto the chair where his father sat night after night, one that was connected to gears and a pulley to easily slide around the room from one telescope to another. His father had once been a clockmaker by trade, and he'd used his talents to improve the standard Star Shepherd equipment. He'd even invented a clockwork cart to make his journey across the Black Lands to the Council Tower faster. When they had lived in Rumvey, his father's skills had been sought after by the rich and fashionable, but clockwork contraptions were not common in these parts. Carol had loved the work his father made. It was special and unique. Then his mother had died, and his father traded it all to honor her memory as a star shepherd. Carol had seen his father use this chair hundreds of times and had even sat in it sometimes when he woke before tearing, just to see what it felt like. But this was the first time his father had ever instructed him to use it. Carol sat up straighter, feeling taller than he had this morning. He couldn't wait to tell Andrew about this. But when Cypher climbed into his lap and they settled in to watch, uneasiness crept in. Could his father be right? Could something really be wrong in the sky? Or was it just a fluke? With every star that came out, Carol's apprehension deepened. But all he could see were the sky and the stars and no answers at all. He cranked the lever to slow, pressed the button on the arm, and the chair began its whirling pattern between the eyepieces of the many telescopes dotting the roof. Soon Cypher grumbled in his sleep, flicking his perked ears and kicking Carol in the stomach as he chased some imaginary squirrel through the woods. The night was quiet and still. Carol alternated between spinning in his father's chair and standing up and walking between the telescopes to keep himself alert. What if another star fell and he missed it? Cold desperation settled into Carol's bones, but it kept him moving. After a few hours of watching, he finally stopped circling and went to the kitchen to make a sandwich. Cypher tagged along, no doubt, hoping for scraps. "Don't worry," Carol said, scratching his dogs behind the ears. "We'll get you something to eat too." When he pulled out a roll from the bread box, he remembered he now had no way to get food. The thought made his appetite wane, but he knew he needed to eat or he'd have trouble staying awake. He tossed a bit of crust to Cypher, who wolfed it down and yapped for more. Carol threw together the rest of his meal, then hurried back up the stairs. Ever since that star fell in the marketplace, an odd sense of urgency had taken root in him, a bone-deep certainty that something was not as it should be. Try as he might, he couldn't shake it, and he wasn't so sure he should. Carol settled into the chair, while Cypher, tired of moving in circles, curled up on his blanket in the corner of the room. Carol set the chair in motion and ate. His father had crafted the chair to stop for 5 seconds per telescope, giving him just long enough to cover every part of the sky above their watchtower. Not long before dawn, Carol glimpsed something. Far in the distance, a cluster of stars was falling all at once. Carol leapt off the chair. He had never heard of more than one star falling at a time. It wasn't supposed to happen. he had to do something. Carol turned to run down the stairs, only to halt in his tracks. His father stood before him in his rumpled clothes, a grave expression on his face. And that's it? Já acabou? Como assim? Então o pai dele voltou. His father stood before him in his rumpled clothes, a grave expression on his face. Então deu tempo do pai dele ir lá no council falar da estrela que estava cortada ao invés de só desgastada. E voltou. E aí, na semana que vem, a gente descobre, então, o que foi que o conselho, dos Star Shepherds falou pro Tyrion. Nossa, esse aqui, gente, foi tão rapidinho. Eu esperava mais história, pra falar a verdade. Mas, bom, é o capítulo de hoje. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Espero que vocês tenham conseguido acompanhar. Espero também que vocês estejam conseguindo ler, Agora que vocês já viram o vídeo uma vez, vocês podem voltar ao vídeo e ir pausando nas frases para tentar ler em voz alta para treinar a leitura, porque o foco é esse, o foco é que vocês consigam ler ou junto comigo, se vocês conseguiram comprar o livro, mesmo o e-book, ou ir pausando o vídeo e lendo as frases em voz alta para treinar a leitura. Pessoal, muito obrigado, quem chegou até aqui, e a gente se fala nos próximos vídeos do canal. Tchau!